Thank you all for coming. What I'm going to do is tell you who I am, why I'm here, what the connection is with Carpet One and the Scylla Foundation. I'll explain about the Scylla Foundation, how it was formed, and then tell you what we do and how we raise money and what we do with the money. And then I'll present a piece of steel from the World Trade Center to the Carpet One stores. And then after that, if we still have time, I'll go into a couple of stories of my experience down on 9/11. So I'm Vinny Doherty. I was a captain in the New York City Fire Department on 9/11. I was the captain, the Special Operations Captain. I was the captain of Hazardous Materials Company No. 1. The New York City Fire Department is a 12,000 member department. 400 of those members are separated out. They're highly trained members. On 9/11, we had 13 units spread throughout the city of special operations. And when I talk about special operations, the reason I do it because Stephen Scylla, the person who this foundation is named after, also was a special operations firefighter. Special operations basically is we take care of the USAR team. We are the USAR team, or Urban Search and Rescue team for FEMA. That always goes out, and that becomes important because how we responded that day. Wherever a firefighter can't go, they usually call in special operations. We do all the special jobs, collapse, in concert with the other members of the fire department. But we have all that special equipment, and we bring all that special equipment to the scene and operate it in concert with the rest of the other truck companies and engine companies when we need each other. Whenever a firefighter gets in trouble, generally it's a special operations unit that is automatically directed to the scene on any working fire that takes care of getting that member to safety. So they're highly trained people. And Stephen Scylla came into the fire department, and he made that cut, basically, getting into special operations. So it shows that he was a special person. But Stephen Scylla grew up on Staten Island. And in order to know the mission of the foundation, you have to know who he was and why the foundation used him, how they named the foundation after him. Stephen Scylla grew up on Staten Island. Staten Island is one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. It's an island unto itself. It's made up of a lot of different small communities, and just the majority of all those small communities are full of law enforcement and fire, NYPD, FDNY. So it's a fabric, and blue collar workers. It's a fabric of New York City that is unique. And it's service-oriented, so that's important. Stephen was the youngest of 7. His parents were what you call lay Franciscans, meaning that they followed the teachings of St. Francis of Assisi. And one of the teachings of St. Francis of Assisi was that we're only here for a short time. While we're here, we need to do good. So this was instilled in Stephen and his siblings from a young age. Not only being instilled by their parents, but living in this environment that is Staten Island, in this service-oriented environment. So at 8 years old, Stephen lost his father. His father passed away. A year and a half later, his mother passed away. So at a young age, his siblings raised him, okay? And they raised him in the same environment that his parents wanted him raised in. So it was natural that Stephen would go into some kind of service, whether it be FDNY, NYPD, emergency medical, or military. So he happened to be one of the lucky ones to get into FDNY. He made the cut. And when I say that, I said because we have a test every 4 years. And we're a 12,000 member department. There's 40 to 50,000 people that sign up to take that test. So there's a big cut right there, right in the front. And then once you get on and you make special operations years later, usually with anywhere between 5 and 10 years, okay, you've hit the jackpot basically. So he was a special person. So on 9/11, he actually was working on 9/10, a night tour. Our night tours go from 6 o'clock at night to 9 o'clock in the morning, and 9 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night for the day tour. So he worked the night tour in squad company number 1, which is at the top of Brooklyn. Now we as firefighters, for all those who don't know us or don't know our culture, generally if we have a tour starting at 6 o'clock, we're not there at 6 o'clock. We're not there at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're there hours before. Because when you think of fire service and you think of law enforcement, you got to think of 3 words: service, family, and faith. Service, because we're service-oriented. We're out there to do good by people. We're out there to help people. Family, we have our main family at home. We give our wife and kids, every time we go into the firehouse, a kiss goodbye. We don't know whether we're coming home to them. So in the firehouse, in the precinct, they become our second family, and we become very close. And in faith, because of what we see on a daily basis throughout our career, you got to have faith, or else you'll go insane. You just won't put up with it, because you got to have faith, because you're out there to do service. And we, a lot of times, we serve people when they're at their lowest in their life. Okay? So you need to keep those 3 words in mind whenever you speak of fire or EMS or law enforcement. And then again, with the military, you could think of those 3 words too, because their service, they're very tight, they're family, and they have to be faith. There are no atheists in foxholes. Okay? So there's a common thread here, a common where we come together, we have a special bond through emergency services and law enforcement. And if you want to think of it in a way that we, fire, law enforcement, EMS, are the first line of defense for you here domestically. We go to all that bad stuff. We shield you from all the bad stuff that's happening, whether it be criminal, whether it be fire, whether it be terrorism. And the military are our first line of defense foreign. Okay? They keep all the bad stuff away from us, away from our shores, so we don't have to deal with it. Okay? So there's a kindred there. We're connected. And it's logical that we make this connection, and that when our guys come back from the wars as they have, as you see here, that we help them. So that's what the Siller Foundation tried to do. So Stephen was working the night tour of September 10th. Again, since the firefighters all come in early, they're all downstairs having coffee, bagels, a little bit of breakfast. And he happened to get an early relief that day, which happens common at every tour, because he was going out, again, family, he was going out to play golf with his brothers on Staten Island. So Stephen left the firehouse somewhere between 8:15 and 8:30, and he got in his car and he started going down, and he got onto the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, one of those wrapped expressways around the city. And a lot of people call it the Brooklyn-Queens parking lot, but so it takes on a lot of traffic. But as he's going down towards the Verrazano Bridge, which is one of the connections, which is actually the only solid connection from New York City over to Staten Island, if he looked back over his right shoulder, he'd see the bottom of Manhattan, and he would see the World Trade Center, as he would every day. So he's going down, and being special operations, he had a scanner in his car. Always wanted to know what was going on. So he started hearing some chatter coming from the Manhattan dispatcher. And he probably looked over his right shoulder. And when he looked over his right shoulder, he would see the North Tower of the World Trade Center in flames. So, and the first plane hit at 0846 hours. So he would have been just on the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. So right away he pulled right over, called his wife and said, "Honey, something's happening in Lower Manhattan." He says, "Tell my brothers to continue. I'll catch up with them on the golf course. I'm going back to the firehouse." So he turned around and went back to the firehouse. Squad 1 had already been dispatched. They were dispatched on the initial alarm, as were all 13 units of the special operations, because we needed special equipment there to do whatever we needed to do at the World Trade Center. So he goes into the firehouse, grabs his gear, throws it in the trunk of his car, and figures if he could get down to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which is a tunnel that connects northern Brooklyn to the lowest part of Manhattan, the Battery. It goes under the Upper Harbor area, under Governor's Island, if anybody's familiar with the layout of New York City. And it's a 1.4-mile tunnel. It's the longest tunnel in North America. So he gets to the tunnel, and NYPD has already shut it down. All traffic out, no traffic in except for emergency vehicles. So he parks his car on a side street, grabs his gear out of his trunk, puts it on, and it's about 60 pounds of gear. And he takes off running through the tunnel in order to get to his guys, get and hook up with Squad 1. Now, from the tunnel, from the base of the tunnel to the Trade Center, it's probably about another quarter mile. So he ran that whole length up to what we figure is he got into the South Tower, because by the time he would have gotten there, the second plane would have hit. It hit at 09:03 hours. So he's going in, and there's plenty to do. We don't know whether he ever hooked up with Squad 1. The members of Squad 1 that day, all of them were killed in the collapse, along with Stephen. So we don't know, but we hope to think that he did. But there was plenty of work for him to do through the evacuation, through the people that were injured, through the people that were burned from the fuel that came down the elevator shaft into the lobby area. So he never came out, and he never got back to the firehouse. So fast forward 6 months, 8 months. You know, his siblings, his other 6 siblings, just getting over the grief and the realization that, you know, Stephen is no longer with them. They decide to make it a point that they don't want to lose his memory of what he was doing. So they came up with the idea of creating a foundation. So they created a foundation, not knowing how to do it, what to do, though they did have a little bit of business sense. They talked to people who have developed other foundations, and they went about doing it. And they knew that they needed to raise funds. And raising funds is always a hard thing. It's not an easy thing to ask people for money. So what they decided to do was, since Stephen ran through the tunnels, maybe we'll have some kind of 3K or 5K run through the tunnels. So they went about planning it, went to the city, got them. It's a big thing to shut down the tunnel for a day. They had to do one on Sunday morning where there's a lot less traffic. And they went about and they put on their first event, which is a Tunnel to Towers run. And they were surprised. They got such an overwhelming response, not only from firefighters in New York City, FDNY, but from firefighters all over. They just came in, and you know what was unique that we found out? It wasn't just a 5K run. They came in with their gear. They heard the story of Stephen Silla, and he ran through the tunnel with his gear, so they came in with their gear, and they ran through it. And even today, we just had the last one that was put on was September 28th, in Sunday, you know, the last Sunday of September. We had 30,000 people in attendance that ran the race. That's a lot. Even for New York standards, that's a lot. So we raised in just about $1 million. And there again, firefighters from all over the country came in, and they ran with their gear on. The disabled vets all came out in force in their wheelchairs. They went through the tunnel also on a 5K run. So it was a spectacular day a couple of weeks ago. And every year, we hope it's just growing and growing. And what we're doing in the spring now is we're doing a tower run. You're running upstairs in the towers. This last run that we had held in the spring, we had the privilege of using the new World Trade Center 1 tower. And we had a collation up top once they got up to the observation deck. And we added something new, is the virtual run, so that you want to come in, you want to take part in the collation and everything, that's great. You can use the elevator, okay, if you can't run up the stairs. So that's a fantastic thing, and those are our two main fundraisers. So what do we do with the money when we raise it? Well, right in the beginning, most of the money just turned around and went right out to the victims of 9/11. They were the ones that needed it. So they set about identifying the needs, the specific needs of the people that were connected with 9/11, whether you were a resident down there, whether you were a survivor, whether you had family members. And we did good work, okay? The money went to a good use. Sandy hit 2012, Hurricane Sandy. So we went about raising funds for that and to help the people that were devastated along this, that were heavily impacted along the South Shore of Staten Island and the South Shore of Long Island. So we did a lot of good there. We were able to help a lot of people get through that trauma. In December, you might have read about it in December of this last December 2014. I believe it was somewhere around December 20th. Two young NYPD cops were sitting in their car in Bedford-Stuyvesant in the middle of Brooklyn, and a crazed gunman came up behind them and put a bullet into each head, executed them. We got together just after Christmas and we said we got to help, see what we can do to help. We set about raising some money, and within a month and a half we raised over $1 million, which we were able to use to pay off the mortgages of the houses for those two. And houses are very high in New York. You know, you're talking $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for a small cape. So these guys lived out in Suffolk, and so we were able to pay off their mortgages, and with the remaining money we were able to give it to the families just to get through that gap area, you know, and get over losing a husband, losing a father, losing a son. So we felt very good about that. Just recently, this last spring, we had a Long Island volunteer fire lieutenant. He responded in Suffolk County. He responded to a house fire. He got trapped. He got overcome by the smoke, and eventually he had a heart attack. And 2 days later, he passed away in the hospital. So again, we used our funding stream to pay off that mortgage for his family's house and to help them out and help them through the period of mourning. So we've been doing a lot of good. What brought us to this spot and what's brought us to helping the vets, somewhere in the neighborhood of 08, 09, a young vet came home to his home in Staten Island, in our backyard, in the Siller Foundation's backyard. We didn't know who he was. We heard about him. And we found out that he was a quad amputee. So we, right away, you know, without even thinking, we just said, we got to do something for this vet. We got to help him out because of, on 9/11 when New York City Fire, NYPD, and the city itself, we were down on our knees. The military came and helped us. And they sent resources into us, and they supported us. So we had to return it. So we figured this was a way to do it. We didn't know what we were going to do. Didn't know what he needed. So what we did was get together with some veteran organizations, talk to vets around the country. And what we got back from the feedback that we got back to him is that he gave all. His life will never be the same. So if we can make it as normal as possible, or give him a new normal, and take care of his family so that they could live as normally as possible, then that's a good thing. So we set about building a home, and we didn't know what was going into the home. We didn't know how we were going to do it, but talking to the experts, we just put in whatever we thought. And we were quite pleased with what the outcome was. It was sort of like a smart home, and every home we build for these vets, we're learning something new. Because every vet that comes back catastrophically injured has their own personal needs. But just to raise these funds, we took a good look at it because we didn't know how many vets that were catastrophically injured. It's not something that's in the newspaper every day. So when we were doing our research and identifying these guys, that are coming back, we were quite surprised. You take your kids, you take yourself. I bet you could go out there and you could talk about the Kansas City Royals. You could talk about their stats. You could talk about their pitches. Who should be playing, who shouldn't be playing. And your kids take them as heroes. And they take hockey players and football players and they take them as heroes. And they know their stats. But how many of us know that there were 5 quad amputees that came back from the wars? And where did they live? And what are their names? And there were 55 triple amputees. There were over 250 double amputees, and I'm not even going to talk about the single amputees. But how many of our kids know who they are and where they're at? So it was an eye-opener for us as a foundation. So we started on this new line of work of building these homes. And I think we got 5 or 6 and completed until a woman from headquarters of Carpet One heard about it. She had a friend in FDNY, and talking to the friend on a telephone call, found out that he was bragging about, you know, the work they were doing, because he was volunteering with the Silva Foundation, and about these smart homes that they were building. And right then and there, she said, we got to do something. So she went right to the CEO. The CEO loved it. As a matter of fact, he requested a meeting. He flew into New York City. He went to Staten Island. Now, Staten Island is a place you don't regularly go to, okay? You know, there's nothing there, you know? I don't even step foot in Staten Island. But he went to Staten Island and liked what they were doing, talked to them extensively, and he says, you know what? I'm going to go back to my vendors. I'm going to go to my stores, and we're going to get involved in this. And the first people that stepped up as vendors was Mohawk Industries. They said, we like it too. And so they're supplying all the carpets, all the floors, and Carpet One is supplying the distribution and the installation and all the logistics. So it became a great partnership. So as we were building the houses, they were taking care of all this for us, which is fantastic. And we're building these houses not in New York City, all over the country, as you see from that list. All over the country, wherever we identify a vet that needs it, it's being done. So as time went on, we started doing this for a house or two. And then the CEO came back in. And I like to think, you know, I don't like to think it was over around a table meeting, because whenever you do anything with the fire service, and I tell all the Carpet One stores, if you want the fire service down here, you got to bring a meal in. They'll come. If it's free, they'll come in. Law enforcement, I said, bring donuts. You know, but I like to think it was over adult beverages at night, you know, in a Casper meal, because we were breaking bread with him, that he decided that we're not doing enough. So he said, you know, I got 750 stores. I got a great group of independent contractors. It's a cooperative. He says, if I could get them all on board, and I could get their salespeople to ask for a $10 donation from every client that comes in. If I could get 10% compliance, 1 out of 10 customers to give $10, the Silva Foundation will realize $800,000 a year. If we could bring that up to 50%, then we could realize over $8 million a year. And $10 on a $1,500 carpet or a $3,000 floor is nothing. So he made up all these materials and he sends it out. He invited us down to their conference. They put 2 conferences on, and you can't call it a convention. You got to call it a conference. Convention is those things with the silly hats and a lot of fun. So it's, you know, a conference, at least it sounds like you're learning something. So they go to the conference. They invited us in. And one of the first conferences, we talk to them about the program of what we're going to do. And we have our guys, there's a battalion chief that runs the project, and he volunteers. Everything is volunteer. And he comes in dressed blues, and he goes to the audience. And he invited us back every conference from that on, from 2014 through 2015. And we started bringing these catastrophically injured vets that we built the houses for. And they get up there and tell their stories. And there's not a dry eye in the house. Not a dry eye in the house. So that's a good thing. So we're doing good. So that's why I'm here. That's what brings me here. Because we realized as a foundation that if we could get Carpet One and Mohawk Industries to do this for us, the least we could do is to get firefighters, FDNY guys, to go out and hit every store in the nation, all 750 plus stores, and present them with a little bit of World Trade Center steel to hang in their stores so that the salespeople can point to it, hear our stories, may relate those stories to the customer, and then just say, can you give $10? You know? So that's what we're doing. And it brings me here. I've been all across the country. This is the piece of steel that we're going to present. It's an actual World Trade Center steel. And, sir?
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
They
might want to take pictures. And if you put it in there, put it up in your store so you can point to it. And just as the military is the front line of defense, boots on the ground in foreign soil, and emergency services is boots on the ground, first line of defense domestically, the salespeople in every Carpet One store is the boots on the ground. They're the people that have to ask. They're the people that have to raise these funds for us. I was in, I believe, I keep on, the B cities up in Montana drive me crazy. I forget which one I was in. I think it was Butte. I don't know. But there was a big store, big furniture store, and the owner, I was up there in September, and the owner was grateful, just like this. I came in to do a presentation, and he got me beforehand. And he says, Vinny, he says, I was just out at the conference. He said, and they brought those vets up, and they were talking. He says, man, it really hit me. So what he did was that he went back to his community. I think it was Butte. And he went back to his community, and he started talking to some vets organizations, and he asked them, can you identify a vet in this area that will need a house built for him? And it took a couple of days. The vet organization called back and says, yes, we have one. We have one right in this community, because everybody likes to know that it's happening in their community. So he says, great. So he went out to the construction industry, and they jumped right on board, saying that they'll donate all their services to build a house. And they actually went out and they said that we'll lean on our vendors to supply us with the supplies to build the house. So what he did was, with the cooperation, I guess you guys have regions.
Right.
You know, the region got together and they bought this painting that was, I think it was at the conference. Right. What they thought, it was with the World Trade Center, and they brought it back and they were going to display it in each store. But he came up with the idea of, if we could run an auction in the communities for this painting, we may be able to raise enough money to buy a piece of land for that house. So everything was rolling, everything was going, and he had everything lined up. And he was so excited. And then he gets a call from the Veterans Association. And they tell him, we lost him. The guy committed suicide. We didn't get to him fast enough. He just couldn't take his life anymore. So there's a bit of urgency to this, a bit of urgency. And like I said, it's falling square on the shoulders of your sales force, of the people that have direct contact with the clients, in order to ask and to raise that money so we could be building homes. We're already well along, and as we identify more and more vets, we're going to use all our resources. We've committed as a foundation to build 200 homes with the help of Carpet One, Mohawk Industries, and any other industry that wants to come on board with us. We're going to realize that goal, and hopefully soon. And after that, we'll just take a look at how much funds is coming in, how far we could go with this. But it needs to be done. It needs to be done for our vets, because we're not finished.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to come out here and filling us in what it's all about.
Yeah.
If you can stay around a little bit, I'm sure there's
Yeah.
questions that the people
Yeah.
would like to ask. And,
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of experiences that I've had.
okay.
All right. But it's, I like doing this. It's something we need to do. But I was down at 9/11. I was actually waiting at the airport, LaGuardia Airport, for a flight out of city on Department of Business. We had just gotten selected as the USAR team, the Urban Search and Rescue team, for the Winter Olympics, which is a great honor. And that was training day in Virginia Beach. So what we did, what I did was, just like everybody else. I had 9:15 or 9:30 flight, and I have a cup of coffee and looking up at the CNN, and what a-hole flew a plane. There's no clouds in the sky, and he hit the Trade Center. So you don't realize it right away, and we didn't realize it. None of us realized it right away, that it was intentional. But I just looked at my another captain that was with me. We just looked at each other and said, "We're not going down to Virginia Beach. We're going in." So what we did was, we headed in, and then the second plane hit, and we knew that we needed to get down there. So we went over, and we actually picked up about 2 tractor trailers of USAR equipment. And when you do USAR, Urban Search and Rescue through FEMA, you never think that you're going to be using that stuff in your own jurisdiction. That's all for use outside the jurisdiction, for when they deploy you. But man, we needed that equipment because all our equipment was in the rubble. So anyway, I got down there, we set up camp, and I operated down there for 2 weeks straight. Now this first story is my story. It's something that I witnessed, okay? I got everything set up, and I went down to the pile, as we started calling it. Now, each pile underneath the towers is 6 stories. 6 stories from street level. World Trade Center goes down another 7 stories. So you're not talking about 6 stories of debris, you're talking about 13 stories of debris. If you can picture the World Trade Center, the old World Trade Center, the 2 towers, the facade of the Trade Center, and I could go in for a 4-hour lecture on how they were built and why they came down. But just to do it quick, just to look out at the outer facade of it, it's rolled steel, not unlike, similar to steel right here, holding up these windows. Because the purpose of that outer facade was to hold up those windows and hang off the side of the building. There was a little bit of structural support in there, but we don't need to get into that right now. So you have this building filled with these windows that were floor to ceiling, about 2 feet wide, with steel. You had vertical and horizontal members holding up these windows. So that's important. That's an important concept to remember for this story, the vertical and horizontal members. When those buildings came down, 110 stories, and to put it into, since this area, I rode through a lot of cornfields to get here. I would think that another way to think about it, I'm a city boy. I have no concept of what an acre is. It doesn't exist in New York City, acres. I could tell you how many blocks, city blocks, make up a mile. I could tell you that. That's not a problem. But I've been told the base of each tower was 208 by 208. Quick math, 40,000 square feet. I was told that approximates an acre. So if that approximates an acre, you have 110 acres, you have a ton of 110 acres. When you look at the fire in multiple stories of that building, you're talking about 3 to 4 stories, so 4 acres in each building, and spreading. Okay. Now, for wildland firefighters, they might be able to handle it, but for urban firefighters, that becomes tough, and it became tough for us because you're fighting at 80 stories up, and the water supply is just not going to get there because of friction loss and the amount of water that you need. So, and the amount of men and material that you need to get up there. When those buildings started their collapse sequence, okay, they came down in 10 seconds. 10 seconds from the time it started to collapse until it hit the ground. 110 stories. Just think of the power. It actually produced hurricane winds at the base, where it took people from the base of the tower and threw them 150 feet over to the financial center. One account was from one of my guys who he said, I held on to a column and my body actually went parallel to the ground. That's how strong those winds were coming out of the base of the tower. 10 seconds. When that happens, everything gets pulverized. So when you go onto the pile, when I went onto the pile that night, I did not see one shard of glass. The glass was pulverized down to silicone. It's made out of sand, and sand is made out of silicone. It's pulverized. You did not see one bathroom fixture, one porcelain fixture, all pulverized. All you saw was metal cabinets, refrigerators, things like that. All plastic was pulverized. You saw steel columns. You saw rebar, and you saw little chunks of cement that made up the floors. And then a lot of this steel and the outer part of the building itself. So I went down there, and we started operating on the northwest corner, VC and Chambers, VC Street and West Street, the northwest corner of the 16-acre complex. So I'm looking out, and I got a couple of guys working. My deputy chief comes down, Deputy Chief of Special Operations, John Norman. He comes down and he starts operating with me. About 10 o'clock, I sit down. John comes over. He sits down next to me. And we heard rumors all day long. The Pentagon got hit. A plane went down to Pennsylvania. We even heard a rumor that the White House got hit, and it's gone. But to us, at the World Trade Center, blinders on, it didn't matter. That was just chatter, because we were rescue and recovery operations at the World Trade Center, and that's where our attention was. So we were operating, we sit down, and then I'm looking over this 6-story pile of debris. I'm looking up. Now, if I told you what the conditions were on that day, I'd have to use a pilot's term, which is severely clear. And severely clear means that a pilot looking from his cockpit could see the horizon without any clouds. Now that was the whole day on 9/11, and it went into the nighttime. Severely clear. You had no clouds in the sky. So I'm sitting down there, resting, and I look up over what's left of the North Tower, 6-story pile of debris, and my jaw drops. I look at it, my eyes widen, and I go to John like this. I probably used quite a few expletives, but I went, take a look at that. What we saw that night, well, we looked at it, and we both looked at it for about 30 seconds. We turned to each other, shook our heads, and went back to work. What we saw that night was the brightest and largest crescent moon that I have ever seen in my life. And it looked like it was right over the North Tower. And there was a star, a bright star, right behind it. Knowing what a crescent stands for, and the rumors we've heard all day long, we just shook our heads and went back to work. How can we explain this? So we worked through the night, and the next morning, I sat down in approximately the same place, just before daybreak. If you look down West Street today, and you might be able to, right from where I was on West Street and VC, you might be able to see a little bit of the Upper Harbor area and all buildings to the right between the West Side Highway and the Hudson River. They weren't there on 9/11. That's all new construction, all new towers. So on 9/11, you could see right out into the Upper Harbor area. If you tweaked your head, you might be able to get a glimpse of the Statue of Liberty and Jersey and a little bit of Staten Island. As I was sitting there, taking a rest period or a blow, the sun started to come up. As soon as the sun came up over that horizon, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shot of light come from that sun, straight up West Street. That sun hit the South Tower, and when I said there were vertical and horizontal members of the outer skin of the World Trade Center, a lot of that was sticking out of the pile debris. And it formed little things like this. And when that sun hit them, since it was aluminum or steel, it started to illuminate them. And it started to illuminate, and you could see it going as the light hit the pile, it started to illuminate up and over the pile. And then it hit the north side, the north tower pile, and everything just started to illuminate. And I'm like, John, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And we just looked at each other. And as fast as it came, 10, 15 minutes when that sun rose, it was gone. I didn't count them, but I like to think there were 2,753 little crosses that illuminated over the South Tower and the North Tower that morning. Now, the next story is a third-person story. I heard the story 2 weeks later when I got home. I operated for 2 weeks, and then they pulled me out of there to start training 104 guys from Special Operations, plus a lot of other guys that are exhausted. We needed to ramp up training, and we needed to get new guys into the division. So they ordered me off-site, kicking and screaming, and I had to do what I had to do. So I went home and took a couple of days off, knowing that for the next 6 months I'm going to be working, 40 to 60 hours a week, training. So I started doing a little work outside my house. If I told you where I live right outside, about 10 minutes outside the New York City border in Nassau County. It's a little village, an old village, one of the first villages on the island. If I described it, 1.5 square miles, if I described it, I have to describe it as a civil service ghetto. Okay? All firemen and cops, blue-collar workers. We have no crime because a criminal coming in doesn't know whether he's coming into a house that has a gun or a hose. So it's, they don't even come in anymore. So I'm outside, and 4 doors up, my neighbor Ralph, retired Nassau County cop, comes out the door, sees me out there, and he says, "Yo, Vinny!" He says, "Do I have a story for you? You will not believe this." And I said, "Ralph, are you kidding me?" I says, "After what I just been through, come on, bring it on. Bring it on." So he comes down, and we're talking out there. Now, Ralph, he's got 2 daughters, 2 sons. His oldest daughter, married, just had her 5th anniversary. Okay? She has a little daughter, and her and her husband live up in Connecticut. Her husband worked for Cantor Fitzgerald. Cantor Fitzgerald is a bond finance company, 600 employees in the North Tower, over 3 floors. Those 3 floors were ground zero for when the plane hit the North Tower. All 600 employees of Cantor Fitzgerald wiped out. Wiped out. Her husband was one of them. At the same time, there was a young firefighter, 8 months on the job from my little village. He was assigned to an engine company, Upper West Side in Manhattan. They weren't initially called, but as soon as the 2 towers collapsed, all hands on deck, all 12,000, full recall. Our first ever full recall in New York City Fire Department. They come down and they were given recovery and rescue operations on the West Side Highway. All right. So they go down and they're operating for about an hour and 15 minutes, and their lieutenant decides that, okay guys, let's take a blow. It's a hot day. Let's hydrate. We're going to be here for a long time. Okay? We're not getting out of here. We're going to be here all day long and into the night. So they sit down. As soon as he sits down, a piece of paper from nowhere comes down. And it lands right as, he couldn't miss it. Comes right past his face, and he says it landed right at my feet. He picked that piece of paper up, and he looked at it. And he recognized the name on that piece of paper. It was the canceled check that Ralph's son-in-law had used to buy the 5th anniversary flowers for his wife. He took that check, he brought it home to Ralph. And Ralph, and this is the first day. This is 9/11, or whenever he got home, 9/12. He brought it over to Ralph, and Ralph brought it up to his daughter. You tell me how that happens. And now I'm hearing that third person two weeks later. Just to show you that the whole place, Pope Benedict came over in 2008. We still had a pit there. He came down, he walked right down to the bottom of the pit, and he sanctified the ground. Of the 2,753 souls that were murdered that day by Islamic fundamentalists, there are between 1,200 and 1,300 families that have never received anything, have never received any remains of their loved ones. So to us, that plaza area that's there now is a cemetery. It's a cemetery. Pope Francis was over there just last month. Okay, he also blessed the area. So to us, it's sanctified land, and it's so it's still going on. Things are still going on down there. Now, and it's a special place. Now, this last thing that I'll tell you about just happened this past 9/11. My son came on the job in May of 2002. He wanted to go down to Manhattan. I wouldn't let him. I said, I'm going to put you right down in the middle of Brooklyn. I said, you're going to learn a job down there because they do a lot of running. They do a lot of jobs. They have a lot of fires down there. And he's been happy ever since. He loves it down there. But my house was impacted. 19 of my guys succumbed, were in the towers, never came home, never came back to the firehouse. So every year on 9/11, we go to the firehouses. We don't bother with downtown. That's politicos, talking heads. We have no time for any of that stuff, okay? And even less and less families are going back down there because it's become too much of a circus. So the families, for my guys, all come into the firehouse. We have a big breakfast, stand at attention at the time the first plane hits, second plane hit, the collapses, Pennsylvania, Pentagon hit. And we talk about our guys, and we have a nice, 4 to 6 hours with the families, and the community comes in. So it's a good thing. My son's firehouse down in Brooklyn was not impacted. They're too far away from the Trade Center, so they weren't even called to the Trade Center until after the collapses. So they didn't lose anybody. So what my son does with his guys on 9/11, they all come into the firehouse in the morning, have a big breakfast, get in their Class A's, and they head out. They actually have a bus. They rent out a bus, and the bus brings them down to Lower Manhattan. They spend a little time with Engine 10, Ladder 10, which is the firehouse directly across from the World Trade Center that was impacted. And then they go uptown. We have the Fallen Firefighters Memorial up on the Upper West Side. And in the afternoon, as a department, we get together up there and we have our memorial, not just for WTC, but also for all the fallen firefighters, through the years. So when he was down in front of 10 and 10, since it's directly across from 4 World Trade Center, and their corner on Greenwich and Liberty looks right at the World Trade Center, the new tower, it's the best place to take a picture of it because you have no buildings in between you. So he goes and he takes a picture of it, he takes out his iPhone, and then, just like any other tourist, he goes up and he takes a nice picture of it. And he takes, that's the World Trade Center. That's the new tower. You got 2 square pieces of the tower, one at the top and one at the bottom. The one at the top is turned, so that when it's turned, it looks like, if you're away from it, it looks like the tower tapers in. And it's got 8 triangles, 4 of them pointed up, 4 of them pointed down. Okay, all from the corners of each of those squares. So you can see how it tapers in. So that on a nice day, it was overcast that day. On a nice day, you see the bottom third, you see the reflection of the buildings around it. But because of the angle and it tapering in like that, the top 2/3 are the sky. So he looks at it and he says, wow, that's kind of dark on his iPhone. So he goes, and he's got his guys all around him. He goes and he takes another picture. When he takes that other picture, He didn't look at what he was taking. He just clicked it. Then when he got the phone down here, he says, wow, hey, take a look at this. And all the other guys started taking out their phones trying to get the picture, and they couldn't. That's the picture that came out on this 9/11. You see the cross in there? Nobody can explain it. Nobody has ever seen that before.
Oh my goodness.
Nobody's ever seen that before, that I'm aware of. And he sent that picture right out to me and to the rest of my family, and it's amazing. And nobody saw a break in the clouds. Nobody saw anything. Things are still happening down there. It's a sanctified area. It's a blessed area. It's something that we rally around. So I'll leave it. Oh, no, I'll leave the picture up here. So that drives, even this drives me, drives a lot of my guys that do this, that volunteer to come out across the country, to help you, to instill in you and basically I'm talking to the salespeople because they're the ones that are going to make this program happen. We need to do it for our guys. We need to do it for our service people. We need to support them. These guys give all. The least we could do is try to make their homecoming as normal as possible and give them a life worthy before we lose them. And there's a high suicide rate among veterans. So, you know, we got to get to them. We got to do it quick. I thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to me. And I hope.
Much appreciated.
Thank you,
Much
sir.
appreciated.